when you get released from jail, don't you still get like your weight in silver and a horse or something?
I wish. I would totally go to jail for that. Oh my God. Hell yeah.
Yes, it is less dangerous than smoking cigarettes, but it is still dangerous.
While vaping has increased, cigarette use among kids has decreased proportionally. So I would see that as a good thing. It's a lot cheaper.
No cigarette, only Juul.
Well, here's the thing. So they didn't ban cigarettes. They just banned the vape products. So now instead of the kids standing out and buying vape products, which are scientifically proven to be quite a bit safer for you, and now, well, they got no alternative. So now they're going to stand out and buy cigarettes. Welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Eric Rosenblatt.
I'm Casey Rochford. What do you got there, man? Jeez.
The vape device.
Oh, well, I guess I'm being dramatic then.
Even over the internet, Yeah.
Well, those vapor particles, they travel along the Ethernet and
yeah, like light speed and stuff. They can just penetrate anything and cause cancer instantly. Yeah, so I thought today we'd talk about vaping, particularly in light of the fact that San Francisco recently banned the sale of vape products citywide. And being a vapor myself who quit smoking using that technology, this is of particular interest to me.
Yeah, and what I found most baffling about that was that they banned the sale, but not the use. If you're over 21, it's still legal to actually vape. You just can't buy it in San Francisco.
Yeah, what's the point of that? Like, they just drive out of the city, whoever, and buy something out of the city.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know if this is true or not, but 20 years ago or so, I thought there was like a local ordinance around here, like around Tacoma, I guess, where it was legal to actually smoke pot. It was just illegal to have possession of it. It was like one of those things where like, well, it's not really legal then, is it? Because you have to have one to have the other. And
yeah, that's a little strange. Well, laws rarely make sense in a logical sense. So
yeah, I mean, like when you get released from jail, don't you still get like your weight in silver and a horse or something?
I wish. I would totally go to jail for that. Oh my God. Hell yeah. Sign me up.
We should do an episode on weird laws that are still around.
Yeah, I actually have a book about that. It's pretty good. Yeah, I think like it's kind of a ridiculous thing on many levels. Because I kind of feel like a lot of people who vape today did do so because that was their means of quitting smoking cigarettes. And I kind of fear that if it's banned or heavily taxed, like Washington State, I think even is trying to impose a tax that it essentially makes it the same cost as other tobacco products. It's going to lead people back to smoking cigarettes. And it's pretty clear that cigarettes are obviously bad. Like we all know that they're bad, but vaping, is it really?
uh, it's still new, so the jury's out on that. Basically, what I've found looking into this is that, um, statistically speaking, there's actually no evidence that it helps quit smoking. Now, that's a statistic, and statistics can lie.
That's true.
You can bend them to your will, and I suspect that while that may be the trend, it shouldn't be interpreted as such that it's impossible to use to quit smoking.
Yeah, I'm an example of that, and I know other people. And okay, there is the more common vapor is somebody who is like a combination user. So they'll vape sometimes and smoke cigarettes other times, kind of at the same time, or not at the same time, but within a short time span. And from what I understand, that doesn't really decrease your risks of anything. Like if you smoke cigarettes on a fairly regular basis, you're definitely putting yourself at risk. Um,
Yeah, and I don't know, like doing both at the same time might actually um, increase risks, because here's the other thing that I've seen is that, and this is going to sound like contradictory, but yes, it is less dangerous than smoking cigarettes, but it is still dangerous, and in a different way, because you're talking about a different chemical reaction going on. You've got you basically you've got a solvent involved now that isn't present in cigarettes, propylene glycol or something,
yeah.
and you're superheating that and then taking in the vapor from it. Well, while all the constituent ingredients by themselves are basically harmless, and some of them are even ingestible, with an asterisk. Uh,
Yeah.
when you put all those things together, and when you add a bunch of heat, chemical reactions can change things, and we don't know a lot about that yet.
Well, okay. Speaking particularly about polypropylene glycol, it that's the same material that's used in fog machines, and that actually has been studied fairly extensively. Now, I know they probably studied it more in the context of ingestion, but think about all the dance clubs and stuff that uses fog machines, and you're breathing that in hours on end and stuff. I don't know that that's like a scourge that's killing people. And the thing is, like, we have to think about it from a relative standpoint. Like, I think any improvement is good. I mean, if you're smoking cigarettes, if you can reduce the dangers to yourself by half, isn't that good?
Well, I mean, here's the other thing. Like, it's not necessarily apples to apples. So, um, while you may be reducing your risks for certain things, you might be at increased risk for other things. And there are some overlap, because it is still nicotine, and nicotine itself is not good for you.
No, that's true.
That's like the primary element in cigarettes that is, a problem. And the other issue that comes along with that is there's actually an immediate added danger, albeit a small one, wherein you're supposed to wear gloves when you're handling this vape juice. Is that what they call it?
Yeah,
Vape
or
juice?
liquid. Yeah,
Yeah.
juice or
So
liquid.
yeah, because it's a highly concentrated amount of nicotine, which can be lethal.
Mhm.
It at the very least, it can and has caused seizures, especially in little kids that get into it and drink it and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Find
and
it
that's
lying
why they have
around.
nowadays everything is sold in childproof containers that you have to kind of like pill bottles and stuff. Now the thing is, yeah, it can absorb through your skin and essentially cause some serious damage, maybe kill you or something. Um, but that I think that's more in something that's recommended when you're handling the concentrated stuff versus the stuff that you would buy in a store. Because there is a difference when you're blending it and mixing it and adding flavorants. You're starting with a very highly concentrated version of that, which is like, I think 50% nicotine or something. It's kind of wild. And then it's considerably less once you put it into the form of a product that's sold to the public. So I don't know that the stuff we get as a consumer is quite the same as that.
Yeah. So as a couple of people that have quit smoking, you have transitioned to vaping. I went cold turkey like 15 years ago, before vaping was even a thing. So I think we can both speak to our experiences in that a little bit. And effectively, while I went through, some form of nicotine withdrawal, it really wasn't that bad for me. I was supplementing my diet with some vitamins that get leached out from smoking and stuff like that. So I think it was, a little easier, but I went from like 2 packs a day to nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
that's awesome. I gotta say, like, kudos to you.
Yeah.
For that. That's really cool.
And so, when you introduce this vaping thing, it's a little like, your nicotine gum or your nicotine patch, but it's like easier, and you still get that, I can speak to this. There's a psychological addiction to this, putting the cigarette to your mouth, like breathing in, slow and steady. It's almost like a meditation. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
so there's like a mental element and almost a not to get all woo, but almost like a metaphysical element to it, because it's really like a controlled breathing exercise that you really don't think about it that way, because it's and you're breathing in toxic shit.
Well, yeah, there's a certain element of that, the whole physical, tangible kind of thing. Like, it's, yeah, I think that aspect of it is really, really integral to the whole experience, and that's the hardest part to get away from. I think a lot of people, they talk about how it's really hard when they quit smoking to like drive a car or talk on the phone or something like that, because there's this connection with that whole behavior.
Yeah. When you have something that's like a solid part of your life for a long time and it's gone, you have like these phantoms. Like, for instance, I went from having a super long ponytail to being completely bald, and for years I would be like reaching for my ponytail.
Oh man.
But like in the instance of like moving on to vaping, have you ever like calculated whether or not your nicotine intake has actually decreased?
I'm pretty sure it's about the same, but I worry about it about as much as my caffeine intake, because I kind of equate the two. As in my understanding, they're very, very similar in toxicity and addictive potential. So I don't really worry about it. Yeah, I know there's a risk of.
I don't know. I don't know about that exactly off the top of my head or anything, but if I'm not mistaken, nicotine has carcinogenic effects, whereas caffeine doesn't.
No, I don't think it's nicotine specifically. Because I did look into this a while ago, and I wish I had the data in front of me. But the main thing that is carcinogenic is the burning of tobacco. There are chemical changes that occur that produce those carcinogens. And of course, some of the chemicals that are in tobacco in general, like there's all kinds of things from pesticides like polonium-210 and lead-210 and stuff, and radioactive isotopes and stuff.
Yeah, there's only trace amounts of tobacco in vape stuff.
No,
trace to none.
There's Pretty much none. I mean, it's basically just pure nicotine with flavorants and a bunch
Yeah,
of
like some of the flavorants, I think, for some reason had trace amounts of tobacco.
and that's possible because a lot are naturally derived, so they could come
Yeah,
from stuff that might be in it. That, to me, I think that if you just had nicotine and the carrier liquids, um, uh, PG and VG, which is basically just like some oils,
propylene
polypropylene.
glycol and vegetable glycerol, I think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And those I don't think in themselves are that bad, but maybe I do wonder about the dangers of unknown flavorants added. Like, who knows what's going into those things? Like, I could see some concern there. Um,
Yeah,
but let's go back to the whole banning vaping thing. Um, th-
it's all
this
about the children.
Yeah, this was basically brought on by that whole mentality that it's to protect the kids because kids are vaping more than ever. Well, I looked into that, and the numbers show that yes, kids are vaping more. That it has increased. Obviously, it like you said in the beginning. This is a new thing,
Mhm.
so we need a little bit more time to fully analyze this. But while vaping has increased, cigarette use among kids has decreased proportionally. So I would see that as a good thing.
I read something to the effect that it's a gate. They're calling it a gateway. Uh,
Oh God.
yeah, like I can't figure out why you would want to go from smoking something fruity to disgusting, nasty, burnt. You know.
Yeah. Oh, they're night and day. Like, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm skeptical about that one, but I mean, if the data is trending that way, like I suppose it makes sense because there is that addictive quality. But
But
you,
if this is good enough, like, why would you switch to something else? Because
I
you can
mean,
get
the
this in
only
any
thing I could
concentration.
think is how much do one of those things cost? Like,
Well, this device was about $40. The liquid is probably about, for a bottle about that big, is maybe $10 or something like that. This
mhm,
is nicotine salt, so it's a totally different animal from the freebase nicotine
mhm.
uh, juices that have existed in the past. But it's considerably cheaper than cigarettes if you account for the taxes.
Well, are you talking in the long run? Because that sounds like a kind of not large, but say you're a high school kid and the only income you've got is like whatever you save from your lunch money, for instance. Um, I think getting a $7 or $8 pack of cigarettes is more accessible than getting the equipment and all this stuff, and getting access to the vaping in the first place. I don't know.
Well,
That would be
okay.
the. I really don't know where they're coming up with this stuff, but
Yeah, imagination, wild imagination. But
it's the
there is
Joe
some
Camel
stuff
thing all
behind it,
over again.
huh?
It's the Joe Camel thing all over again. Oh, it's a cartoon. It's appealing to kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now there is a thing. Um, there are cheaper products like Juul. That's Juul, and it's kind of like a little pen sized, like almost a cigarette sized thing. It's a lot
There is no
cheaper.
cigarette, only Jewel.
Oh man, that's good. So it's a little bit, it's quite a bit cheaper, and they have these disposable pods that come preloaded, and they're non-refillable and stuff. Supposedly that's really popular with kids, and that's where all of this began. Um, and I, here's the thing: vape liquid doesn't always contain nicotine. Um, in fact, uh, being somebody who's a consumer of the product, going into shops and trying to buy the liquid, I've noticed more and more that there's like less nicotine. And in fact, there's huge stockpiles of zero nicotine juices available. And they've diminished. Like, you can't get, in the free base nicotine, you cannot get 24 milligrams and 12 milligrams anymore. It's like 6 or 0. And So my understanding is for some kids, it's all about like the show of making a bunch of clouds and stuff like that, more than it is about the nicotine. Um, and I mean that's reflected by the sales. I mean, if I don't know if they're selling to kids, that would be kind of stupid. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, fundamentally, like this whole like banning sales of it to somehow keep it away from kids, I don't really understand that, since they're not old enough to buy it anyway. Unless the
yeah,
whole philosophy is that, you know, kids rely on standing outside the corner of 7-Eleven and getting someone to buy it for them. Well, now they would have to leave town to do that. I guess I could see that as an idea, but
well, here's the thing. So they didn't ban cigarettes; they just banned the vape products. So now instead of the kids standing out and buying vape products, which are scientifically proven to be quite a bit safer for you, and you know, now, well, they got no alternative, so now they're going to stand out and buy cigarettes like we used to do back in the day.
yeah. And I think I skimmed over an article and saw something about tobacco is regulated differently, so they can do things like this to vaping, but not to cigarettes. Some weird bureaucratic loophole or something.
God, Jesus, this is so confusing and convoluted.
Yeah, like
Ugh.
the most dangerous things are the most prevalent.
Yeah, I know. Like that's this thing. Like, uh, why is there such a push to ban and regulate something like this that's relatively benign, uh, about as benign as coffee, um, and there's no push to ban actually dangerous stuff like saturated fat and sugar and alcohol or actual cigarettes. Like, oh, those are okay, except they
Yeah.
kill like way more people than vaping ever does. Yeah, okay. If you're a vapor, statistically, you have about a double the risk of having a heart attack, but that's still like way, way less than if you were a smoker. And that's about all you have to deal with, except for I think something you'd mentioned earlier about like fluid buildup in your lungs or something like that from the juice.
Oh, the popcorn lung thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like kind of unique to vaping, just because of the the method of you know smoke versus vapor, and the differences in that damages the lung lining in a particular way. So it's like you're damaging your lungs one way or the other, and they're just different damages.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one important innovation is the introduction of the salt or nicotine salt juices, because they behave in your body similar to the way cigarette smoke does. So you absorb actually a pretty good amount of nicotine, and you don't chain vape like you do with free-based nicotine. And maybe I would suspect that the popcorn lung thing is a product of people that chain vape or are cloud chasers that just they have to like blow like tons of smoke out. And those are usually the people like that use like 0 milligram nicotine, so there's like nothing in it. um but again, it's like the risk is so small, and why ban this thing? This is my suspicion. I'm a little bit of a conspiracy nut, so I'll go in the conspiracy angle for
No.
this episode. And I think that the push uh, to ban this or regulate it or tax it heavily is basically a tactic to boost the decreasing tax revenues from the sales of tobacco. Because you can look at it, the numbers don't lie. Like cigarette smoking is way down, and so therefore taxes are way down. And so the state is like, oh, we're not making as much money now. Where can we make money from? Oh, let's point the boogeyman arrow at this, and we're going to equate it to cigarettes, because everybody knows cigarettes are bad, and so they just like put it on the same level and tell us, oh, it's totally dangerous and bad. And there's even investigations into secondhand vaping, which just makes me laugh. But then they're using fear to justify it, and like you said earlier, it's for the kids. Like, oh, we got to protect the kids, which is a bogus argument. It never is about the kids. It's about money. Yeah. And at least that's my philosophy, or my theory on this, is that there is no desire to protect anybody. It's all about the dwindling income from tobacco sales and recouping those losses. And what better way to do it than something similar that has nicotine?
I don't even know if I'd call that a conspiracy theory. I think it's just the definition of shady politics.
yeah, exactly. I'd agree. Yeah.
It's just kind of like the status quo in America.
Mm-hmm.
Driven by money. It's like, if they could just be transparent and come out and say, hey, look, we're losing funding from the taxes that we were getting from this vice. If you want to like maintain your way of living as far as infrastructure and all the other things that taxes pay for, do you mind a small increase if it means that people are healthier? I think a lot of people would probably be on board with that, but instead they're just trying to like villainize other things and mess with the economy in unnatural ways.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And yeah, why not just come out and say it? Like, say it for what it is. I think people would give them a little bit more respect, but at this point it's like, no, that's what you get. I'll figure out a way around the system. Because at the end of the day, it goes back to that age-old argument about self-ownership. We are free to put whatever substances we desire into our bodies, even if those substances are harmful. And they're just like, so why can't I do that? And yeah.
I mean, so since your intake probably hasn't changed much, was your intent to actually quit altogether, or were you just trying to find something that was like mitigating damages to your body?
It started more with curiosity, because I got started back in like the Kanger Tech days when they were like the little pen type things that kind of sucked, and I was interested in it, and I like gadgets and stuff, and I thought, wow, what a cool idea. And so that was part of it. And then I thought, well, I should probably be a little more responsible and try to quit and stuff. And those things, the original devices were kind of crappy. But then as technology improved and newer things came out and they got better, I eventually it just happened naturally. I just preferred vaping. Like, I would vape for a while and feel better. And then if I had a cigarette, I'd be like, oh God, that was terrible. That sucks. I feel like shit, like, so it just kind of transitioned on its own. I'm probably not, this is probably not representative of everybody. I'm sure everybody's got their own take on it, but it is an effective tool. And I could probably just not do this, but I kind of like it. It's fun. So
I've been kind of thinking about it, like, technology could very easily utilize the vaping device to actually assist in quitting if that's what you wanted. Like, let's say you get, of course, it would be slightly more expensive just because, there's extra, programming that would have to go into this. But my thinking is that here you have a nicotine in a solvent, so you've got a concentration in mgs per mil. It's milligrams per milliliter. So I guess you could say cigs per mil. uh, so why don't you have this vape pen or whatever on the market that is tailored towards weaning you off? Like, you can't tell it not to do this for you. If you buy this product, like, and you stick to it, basically it starts you off at, whatever you're doing, like 32 cigs per mil, and and it just gradually weans you down to 0 and doesn't even tell you where you're at or anything. So there's no like mental oh geez, this is taking too long, or this is going too fast, or anything like that. It just weans you off, and then maybe when it hits 0, it like tells you like, hey, you did it.
Yeah. Oh, I know that something similar to that has been developed, but not quite on that that like obfuscated level where it doesn't tell you anything. But because you can control the power of a lot of devices, it's very easy to control how much stuff is coming out of it. So it can totally be done.
Yeah. So I'm just talking about like a programmed attenuation that, just gradually actually gets you off of it. And of course they won't do that, because then it means they're getting less and less customers.
Sure. But again, it's like, I go back to the idea that, like, is it really that bad? Like, why is drinking coffee that bad? I don't know. Yeah, people get addicted to coffee and caffeine, and maybe it's not necessarily
that. Certainly, like, even though it hasn't been around that long, it's already shown more detriment to your body than like having 4 or 5 cups of coffee. There's.
Well, I guess it would be, that's true, because coffee does have like other stuff in it, so it would be akin to like taking no-dose pills every day or something like that, instead of
because things like coffee and alcohol in moderation can actually be good for you in certain ways, and
okay,
I don't know if you could say that for vaping.
Actually, you might be able to, and this is yet another study I wish I had in front of me.
Are they putting nutrients in the vape now?
No, but the psychological aspect, the effects of it in mitigating mental disorders or trauma or stress, that there is a benefit there, because actually, if vaping or even smoking reduces stress, that's significant, because stress is a killer. And so I'll have to find that sometime.
Yeah. I mean, the way stress kills you over time, though, is not all that dissimilar to the cardiovascular side effects that come from vaping and smoking. So, sure. I don't know. It would be hard to make that stretch, I think.
But, well, I agree. I think it's
hard to quantify like the success of like when your measuring stick is somebody's mental state. Like, you can't like put that in a vial and measure it. You know what I mean?
No, that's true. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. It's not. It's a little more complex than that. But nevertheless, it goes back to this concept, like, okay, so something's bad for you. So what? Who's to say that you can or can't do something? In my view, only me or you, if it's you doing it. Like, if it's bad for you, like, you have to make that decision yourself, and not some other group of people. Because then, if you think about it, it goes back to logic. Like, one of the core principles of logic is consistency. So if a group of people or an individual can make that decision for a person based on one thing, like, let's say, smoking or vaping, then they can, by extension, do that to all things that are slightly harmful. And so then at that point, you have a world in which some huge organization, some all-powerful organization or group of people can just like eliminate all of the fun out of life, all the flavor, and you're left just eating a bland nutritional puck or something like that, and that's it. Like, where's the fun in that? I live dangerously. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of danger in your life, and having a little bit of fun. The vices are not necessarily bad in that regard.
Let's get dangerous.
Because we're all going to die. It's just a matter of how and when.
Yeah. It's a really tough ethical and philosophical concept, and I think we've touched on this before in one of our episodes. The whole self-ownership and being able to do things that are harmful, and then when it comes to autonomy, there's you always have to factor in those who are not yet matured enough to be considered like fully functioning autonomous adults, you know, and that blurry, huge gray area that's so variable from person to person makes it really hard to draw a line somewhere, because, you know, there has to be a line. You know, there's not a gradient between legal and illegal. So it's like you have to put a line somewhere, unfortunately. And it's like, when you have that issue where, yes, adults can do whatever the hell they want, when the kids have access to it, that's when people start freaking out and wanting to restrict what the adults can get just for the sake of the children. And while that's stupid, it's not for lack of good intent, you know.
Yeah, but all the best intentions don't necessarily make a good outcome. There's unintended consequences to everything, and the thing is, I agree.
But I mean, the consequence of this is that, oh gee, you don't get to have easy access to something that's harming you. You know, well, like it is harmful. So it's like, is it really that important to have easy access to it?
Well, who's to judge that? That's the thing. Like, that's subjective. What's important? What is?
It's not subjective. What's harmful, though?
No, but it's fun. Like cocaine or heroin or something. Like, you know, it does do harm, but people do enjoy it. Or what about bungee jumping or paragliding or something? Yeah, it's super dangerous. Hiking even is really dangerous, but it's fun and people like to do it. Do we dictate to people what they can and can't do based on the risk? Or do we just let people do what they do? And I think ideally what we should do is allow whatever, and if we have information about it, provide that information and give people the ability to discern for themselves whether the risk is worth it, and leave it at that. Because this whole thing, it's like we keep on changing the game and moving the goalposts, and it's always fluctuating because nobody knows anything and there's new stuff coming out all the time. I have a lot of problems with people telling other people what to do based on their own subjective beliefs about something. And and I think that just because something's harmful, like ladders are dangerous. Do we ban ladders, or do we tell people you can't climb on a ladder, or do we have like some? It'll never end. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's like they're not all the same flavor of danger. Like, I don't know, like a ladder is arguably something that you actually need to put yourself in these situations for sometimes. Like, I got a hole in my roof, I have to go up there.
Okay.
It's dangerous, but, you know, like, I don't, like, have to go have a cigarette or anything. It's but once, you know.
Yeah, but what if the ladder is used to put up Christmas lights? You don't need to do that, but you're just putting some lights on your house. It's something for fun. It's enjoyable. Something, and it's a risk.
So it's pretty clear to me we need to ban Christmas lights.
Yes. Okay, that's the subject of this episode. Banning Christmas lights. There's a new initiative that you and I are going to introduce in Washington State this year to ban Christmas lights on the basis that people will climb ladders to install them and they're going to die. People are going to die unless you ban Christmas lights.
Yeah, you remember in 15 years ago or so in Tacoma, those heroic Christmas light bandits that would run around and snip Christmas lights and they would just go pop and all the lights would go out at once.
I know nothing about that, but I do know about a band of heroic snowman beheaders that ran around with a ninja sword cutting off the heads of snowmen for the sake of the future of all mankind.
And then we could go into the milk crate bandits and
keep.
Well, anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think we've actually covered like a pretty good amount of like the core things surrounding this particular issue. I mean, there's way more, and I really would like to have data and studies. There's one thing that I found looking this up that there's at least one long-term study that was published, I think, in the Annals of Internal Medicine, showing that vaping is significantly safer than cigarettes, but not 100% safe. But then nothing is 100% safe, not even water, not even health food or anything. Like there's all kinds of crazy things that are in stuff. Like, you could eat organic vegetables every day and you're still taking in like, there's going to be trace amounts of radioactive elements that are going to fill you with ionizing radiation and stuff. Like it's just that life is dangerous. That's it. Have fun. Yeah. That's the end of it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I guess the moral of this story concerning San Francisco's ban is, if you're going to San Francisco, be sure to buy some vape juice on the way. Sorry for my terrible singing there.
Nice. Yeah, it's kind of a token action, I think. Like, I think they're hoping that it's going to catch on, because what happens in California, it just happens everywhere, and maybe they're hoping it'll catch on for some reason. I'd like to actually. I haven't looked this up, but I really want to find out who penned the initiative or the laws or whatever, and find out where this is all coming from and why. And Ashcroft. I'd like to have a conversation with him, honestly. Like like, what the hell are you thinking? Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody out there that is somebody like myself that quit smoking using vaping, I'd love to hear from you. And if you're somebody that thinks vaping is disgusting and it's going to kill you, I want to hear from you too. Comment.
Yeah, there's definitely a divide growing in this relatively new form of using nicotine. So there's definitely a lot of discussions that'll probably crop up around this, and we definitely invite you to keep the conversation going, and we would love it if you'd like and subscribe and share with all your buddies, and don't forget to hang out for the song at the end, and you can pick them up at patreon.com/KSMvidcast.
Oh yeah, and thanks for deep diving with us, and have a good day or a night. whatever time it is in your part of the world at this particular time you're watching the video.
Vape 'em if you got 'em.
Take care, everybody.